Hey, what's going on, guys? Let me know if you guys can hear me okay. Good to see you, CH, Siam, Riado, Darian, Gumby, Heavenly Motivation. Appreciate the compliments. Glad you enjoyed the live. It's going good, guys. It's going good. Doing good today. It's a good weekend. Price is holding steady in the market. So we're going to talk about some good stuff today, trading macro news and crypto, about front running it, about how macro news affects the space, front running, game theory, and everything in between. So definitely stay tuned. It's going to be a great stream, guys. Definitely looking forward to this. Let me go ahead and get a clock going. All right, and let me actually post this in the live. All right, what's going on, Eduardo? Good to see you here. Let me go ahead and give it a 2-minute timer here, and then we will get started. What's going on, Spiros, Tobias, Nezzy, 6 Coffee 9? Good to see you guys here. Awesome, good group of people in here. Alright, guys, if you haven't liked the video, definitely like it. The stream's going to be very good. Like I said, we're going to talk about macro news, going to talk about how the front running starts with that, how it affects the market, global liquidity, monetary policy, quantitative tightening, quantitative easing, everything in between. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great video, guys. Maddie says, happy to be here. Much appreciated. Hey, happy to have you. Claudio, Don, Pedram, Azair, Poppy Pete, 288 Divine, Jeremy, awesome. Good to see you guys. A lot of good people in here. Happy Saturday indeed. Yo, Akshay, good to see you here. It's going great. Thank you for asking. Market's doing good. Market is holding relatively stable. I'll talk about that a little bit as well, and some upcoming events I am looking at. Let's see. Jeremy says, before we start, can you tell me which strategy to use for trading crypto? I use ICT for futures, and I have understanding in that, but what for crypto? So here's the thing, Jeremy. Whichever strategy works for you, right? Backtest each strategy and determine which works for you. If it's ICT, if it's SMC, if it's Elliott Wave, there's various strategies, and honestly, whatever works for you is going to be the best one because everyone is different. Spiro says, data cycle have start to go crazy. Hey, absolutely, Spiros. Things are about to get crazy in the market, so stay tuned, guys. What's going on, Galen? Dev, good to see you here. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Muadam, brother, how can I start copy trading with you? That's still something I'm waiting for. So I'm waiting to get that started, but just be patient on that, and we will eventually start that. So what's going on, Chudjak? Good to see you here. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started with the stream. Remember, this is being recorded, so anyone who misses this will be able to watch it afterwards. So trading macro news in crypto. This is going to be about understanding how global economic events move digital assets. Because remember, guys, most people think that Bitcoin's 4-year cycle is just that, its own 4-year cycle, but it's based off global liquidity and it's based off monetary policy. And so let's dive into that and exactly what topics or what metrics determine Bitcoin's price. So crypto markets are increasingly tied to macroeconomic data. We'll cover that more into detail soon. Interest rates, inflation, and global liquidity now drive Bitcoin and altcoin cycles. Before, that may not have been the case, but usually, the 4-year cycle does match up with global liquidity and monetary policy, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Successful traders must interpret traditional financial news through a crypto lens. Guys, and here's the thing I want to focus on as well is you have to look at everything through a crypto lens, okay? How are people going to front run this? How are they going to look at this? What's the game theory behind this? Are they going to buy the news, sell the news? How's that going to affect the future, the future price appreciation in crypto? Are we going to dump afterwards? Is the cycle ended? Like, you got to be able to look at this financial news, like interest rate cuts, etc., through crypto and how that's going to affect risk on assets, because that's what crypto is. It's a risk on asset. And so that's why you have to look at everything through the crypto lens. So there's key macro drivers in crypto with regards to the financial system. One, Federal Reserve policy, so the FOMC. This is happening next Wednesday, October 29th. And this is a big thing. Jerome Powell, not so much what interest rates, how many interest rate basis points he cuts, like 25 or 50, but more so what his outlook is on the market. That's going to be something that you need to pay attention to, because if he's dovish and he's saying, hey, we're going to cut interest rates multiple times over the next few months, okay, that's bullish, right? Everyone's going to buy that. If he says we're going to end quantitative tightening, yes, bullish. Everyone's going to buy that. But if he says, no, I think we're not going to cut rates anymore this year, and I think we're going to continue quantitative tightening, it's going to be short-term bearish if that happens. And so at that point, you are going to see us sell the news, and you're probably going to see some more chop, and then you're going to see some front-running happen, because the next day we have Trump talking with Xi Jinping, October 30th. And so that's another catalyst in and of itself. You also have the Ethereum staking ETF with BlackRock. That final deadline is October 30th. So again, it's an interesting dichotomy where you have, even if there's negative news with the FOMC meeting, we still got to have some short-term bullish catalysts with Trump, President Xi, and Ethereum staking ETF, and a few others, okay? So that's something you guys have to keep in mind. And you also have inflation reports, CPI data, PPI data, PCE data, etc. That's also why there's so much volatility around these times whenever we have these meetings, okay? So, for example, the CPI data we had come out the other day, that was interesting because it actually came in lower than expectations for inflation, which technically should be bullish, yet the market reacted negatively because it means that the Fed's not going to cut rates as much as they thought, right? There's this weird dichotomy where you have bad news is good news and good news is bad news, because the worse news that we have, the more likelihood that the Fed's going to end quantitative tightening, they're going to cut interest rates more, and they're going to pump more money into the market. So people want the short-term price appreciation for potentially the long-term bearishness. And so it's a very interesting relationship we're seeing with the market, and that's why game theory is so important to understand, and understanding how everything operates through a crypto lens, because we want things to pump, we want rates to be cut, we want money to be injected into the economy, but to do that, we need more negative news to come out, which is a weird relationship to have, but again, it happens. So employment data, NFP, non-farm payrolls, okay, that's another thing, right? Is unemployment lower than expected or higher than expected? GDP growth and geopolitical events. So geopolitical events meaning the tariff negotiations between Trump and China, the wars that are going on between Iran and Israel, or Hamas, and Israel, right? With Gaza, Palestine. I mean, all of that stuff. Like, it's a real thing, and it does affect the market. And what happens when these events start flaring up again? You have risk on assets being the first thing to go down, i.e. Bitcoin and crypto. So you got to be able to anticipate how these events are going to affect the market. Now, why macro matters for crypto? Bitcoin acts as a risk-on asset moving with equities, usually moves in parallel. Liquidity tightening equals crypto sell-offs. So meaning quantitative tightening usually means, more selling off in the market. Liquidity easing equals bull runs, so quantitative easing. Everyone is waiting for quantitative easing to start. And so it's only a matter of time. I know JP Morgan actually said they expect the Fed to end quantitative tightening this month, October 29th. If that happens, guys, the market's going to pump very nicely. Also, you have altcoins amplifying Bitcoin's reaction, meaning altcoins are like a beta play, okay? So if Bitcoin rises 3%, altcoins are going to rise between 10 to 20% at least. So just have that risk properly diversified to where, yes, you have exposure to Bitcoin, but also some of the altcoins because they will rise more. And again, that also is amplified the opposite way. If Bitcoin declines, altcoins are dropping 10, 20%. Okay, interpreting the Fed signals. So hawkish is another term for bearish, and it means that USD value is up, Bitcoin value is down. When I say USD, I mean the DXY, okay, the strength of the dollar. And so if the Fed says, nope, we're not going to cut rates anymore, we're not ending quantitative tightening, boom, DXY is rising, Bitcoin's dropping. If they're dovish or bullish and they're saying, hey, we're going to cut rates, we're expecting a few more rate cuts this year, and we're going to end quantitative tightening, Bitcoin's going up, dollar value is going down, DXY is going down. To track this, look at the Fed Watch tool for CME, and it'll tell you the probability that the Fed is going to cut rates. I think right now it's around 98%. So it's not a question of if the Fed is going to cut rates. It's a question of how much are they going to cut rates, 25 basis points or 50 basis points. And then Powell's tone. Guys, you got to look at Powell's outlook, right? Everyone's waiting for that outlook and what he's expecting for the rest of the year. Inflation reports and reactions. So this is actually opposite of what happened recently. But all things equal, CPI being greater than expectations, so inflation being higher than expectations is bearish, and CPI being lower than expectations is bullish. Short-term volatility followed by trend continuation. So the reason it was opposite, CPI was lower than expectations, but it was bearish, like I said, is because people want the Fed to cut rates. They want to end quantitative tightening. And so if CPI is better than expected, well, now you may not get that, right? So it's a weird relationship right now. So it's, again, part of game theory where you got to look at kind of where the puck is going in a way versus where it's at currently. So it's just, yeah, a lot of people who just look at everything for face value and are waiting for the news to tell them what to do, they're always going to be one step behind. Now looking at employment and growth data. So strong NFP is going to be bearish. A weak NFP is going to be bullish for non-farm payrolls. Combine that with your yield curve DXY and sentiment for confirmation. And so, for example, the DXY has that inverse correlation between the dollar and Bitcoin. So if the dollar rises, Bitcoin's going to drop and vice versa. And also sentiment. Okay, so sentiment is another thing where you want to pay attention to the market's reaction, not necessarily the news. So if the market reacts bullishly to negative news, maybe there's something you're not seeing, right? And so that's where you have to look for sentiment for confirmation is if price isn't declining, like remember, when Trump mentioned that news with Canada about them no longer negotiating with them, the market didn't really react like it did with China where it dropped, 20, 30, 40, 50% plus. So when you see that and the market is becoming numb to these announcements of tariff announcements with Canada, India, etc., that tells you that, okay, most of the move is done. People are starting to accumulate. People are becoming numb. And now people are forward looking into rate cuts, into quantitative tightening ending, etc. That's why you got to look for sentiment for confirmation of how the market reacts, not necessarily the actual news. Now, correlations to track. So Bitcoin versus the DXY. That's going to be an inverse correlation. So remember, the DXY is the dollar, the strength of the dollar. The dollar rises, Bitcoin's declining, and vice versa. Bitcoin versus Nasdaq and the S&P, positive. So usually these two are correlated with one another. They're in parallel. If one goes up, the other goes up. Now, interesting again, on Friday, we had the stocks go up, but crypto didn't really rise. So what happened there? Well, it tells you there may be a shift in correlation. There may be a shift in sentiment. There may be a shift in the way people value stocks versus crypto. So, because stocks have been doing so well recently, and so why would you invest in crypto if stocks are doing great, right? So again, it's all about perception at the end of the day. Perception's reality. So if people perceive stocks to be more valuable, they're going to do that. It's just waiting until eventually some type of catalyst, signals us to go more risk on. Like I said, if quantitative tightening ends, quantitative easing starts, if more rate cuts are coming, then yes, people are going to have more discretionary income. They're going to invest in more of those risk on assets like crypto. But until then, we may see stocks lead the way. And then Bitcoin versus gold. This is a mixed correlation, depends on inflation liquidity. But recently, I'll tell you this. Recently, gold has been inversely correlated with Bitcoin. So if you look at the chart of gold, gold has been going crazy, right? You saw gold topping out near 4,300. You saw people waiting in line to buy physical gold just the other week. That was literally topping signals there. Now, if you look at history between Bitcoin and gold, historically it's been inversely correlated. So when gold tops out, historically that's when Bitcoin bottoms out. You also can look at the correlation between copper and gold. When copper gold bottoms out, then Bitcoin bottoms out as well. And so it's all these different correlations. That's why they're so important, guys, because if you can chart these, you can actually predict where price is going to go. So like I said, going back to gold, it topped out at 4,300. Now it's only a matter of time before Bitcoin catches up. Bitcoin lags gold usually between a month to 3 months. So I know that's a wide range, but I do believe that Bitcoin's catching up, and now we're starting to see a little shift from gold over to Bitcoin now. So just keep an eye on that. Trading framework. So one, you identify the upcoming macro event. For example, the FOMC meeting October 29th. Two, you set your pre-event bias. So, okay, my pre-event bias is I'm expecting the rate cuts to happen. Now, with that pre-event bias, we also have certain scenarios that can play out, like I just mentioned. If The Fed cuts rates 25 basis points, but their outlook is hawkish. They aren't expecting any more rate cuts, and they're not going to end quantitative tightening. That's bearish. If the Fed cut rates 25 basis points, but they're going to end quantitative tightening, and they're going to cut interest rates more in this year, that's bullish. If they cut interest rates by 50 basis points instead of 25 basis points, that's bullish, right? So these different scenarios you can expect, and that can help you to align where if we have short-term pullback, but we have some bullish outlook, well then that pullback is for buying, right? I still think the pullback is going to be for buying no matter what because of where we're at in the cycle. We're at the end of October. We still have the Trump-China negotiations. We still have the Ethereum staking ETF. We still have a couple other things that could be catalyst in the near future. So that's why I think any dip is probably going to be short-lived. So just keep an eye on that. Trade the short-term volatility. That's what I meant. Is if it's a short-term dip, but the news is still bullish, you want to buy it because eventually the market's very efficient. It's going to buy up that dip. And then adjust for post-event trend continuation. Like I said, if the Fed's outlook is very dovish, very bullish, then there's no reason not to trade that trend continuation if eventually people start buying it and then you start seeing the sentiment change and now there's more certainty in the market and now you'll be able to capitalize on that. Also, I'm seeing only 14 likes but 72 viewers. If you guys could like the stream, that'd be awesome. I really appreciate it, guys. Trying to share you guys as much free content as I can. So here's an example of a CPI release play. And this is under normal circumstances, mind you. Expected 3.4% inflation, actual 3.8%. So inflation came in higher than expected. Bitcoin drops 2%, the DXY spikes, equities pull back. Fade panic after funding resets. So at this point, once everything resets, then we can continue on as properly scheduled, right? And so that's why you want to wait for that volatility to calm down. And then once everything plays out as it should, then you can probably start buying afterwards, right? But there's going to be a lot of volatility regardless during these events. Tools and resources. So you have the economic calendar, Forex Factory Trading Economics. You have on-chain metrics like Glassnode and CryptoQuant or Dune Analytics. You also have macro indicators like the DXY or yields. And then you have sentiment tools like the Fear and Greed Index, CoinGlass, etc. Now also you have the Fed CME Watch tool. So that one that's going to help you determine what percentage likelihood is it that the Fed's going to cut rates. Like I said, it's around 98% now. But you have all these resources, so make sure you guys use them. Even with the Fear and Greed Index, sentiment tools. If we're in extreme fear below 20, that's an easy buying opportunity. If we're in extreme greed above 80, that's an easy selling opportunity. You see what I mean? And so use these indicators to your advantage, guys, especially sentiment indicators. If you counter trade sentiment, it's probably one of the most profitable trades you'll make because the masses are usually wrong. That's why 95% of traders lose money. So use this data to your advantage. See what the big whales are doing with these on-chain metrics, like with Nansen AI, with these big whale wallet trackers, with HyperDash, right? Tracking those hyperliquid whales. So pay attention to the big whales, pay attention to the smart traders. That's going to help you determine where price is going. And then risk management. This is a big one, guys, especially after October 10th. Avoid leverage during high volatility, okay? Please, please, please avoid high leverage during these events because the market's going to whipsaw you both ways. Use stop losses. I really don't need to expand on this. You saw what happened October 10th. For everyone who didn't have a stop loss, they got liquidated. Size positions based on event importance. So, for example, if the Fed ends quantitative tightening, they're going to cut rates more, and you can see a shift in the market. Everything's going to start pumping. They're going to start becoming, injecting money into the economy. Well, obviously, you're going to size bigger into that because it's literally a trend shift, and you're going to profit much more off of that. And then stay neutral until direction confirmed. So yes, there's going to be volatility, but once the direction is confirmed, that's when you size in. Now here's an advanced strategy. So combining macro and the narrative. Okay, so if you combine both, that's going to help you profit even more if you're able to combine the macro plus the narrative. Say the narrative is base season or BSC season or AI or what have you, right? You can capitalize on these if the market's bullish and you can get the narrative, and you can make that much more money. Rate cuts mean alt season. So the more rate cuts we have, the more higher chance that altcoins are going to pump. Inflation peak, Bitcoin is seen as hard money. So remember, Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, a hedge against uncertainty. It's digital gold. That's why now you're starting to see that profit or that money switch from gold over to Bitcoin. And then recession means stablecoin rotation. So we saw what happened in 2009 with the COVID crash. Wasn't necessarily a recession per se, but it was a huge drop. And what did we see? People sold off their cryptocurrency for stablecoins. So just be mindful of where we're at and what that macro environment is going to mean for crypto in your bags. Putting it all together. So macro means liquidity plus psychology plus data. You got to be able to take all of these into account. Follow key reports and market reactions. So remember, this isn't just about what the results are, but how the market reacts to the results. If it's negative news, but the market isn't reacting negatively, maybe they've already priced in that negative news. Maybe it's a buy the news event instead of a sell the news event. Maybe they've been accumulating now, and now these negative news items have less of an effect. That means we're going to pump soon. You see what I mean? And then blend macro awareness plus technicals plus on-chain for best setups. So you don't only look at, okay, the FOMC meeting's coming up. You want to look at technicals. Are my indicators also oversold? Is the price at major support on the daily or weekly time frame? Because that's also a metric where even if it's negative news, well, if price is at major support while your indicators are oversold, maybe we're not going to fall through. Maybe we're going to bounce still, right? And then what's on-chain data saying? What are the whales doing? ETF flows, are they near 1 billion of outflows? Is liquidations near 1 billion for 24 hours? That means we're near a local bottom. So you see what I mean? When you can combine all three of these, then you can really capitalize on those good buying opportunities and really analyze the market from a complete, you could say, from a complete perspective versus just being tunnel vision on one certain metric like the macro event, etc. So in conclusion, we talked about mastering macro analysis gives an edge. So guys, this is what's going to help keep you ahead of most traders, because who else is looking at other macro events like the FOMC meeting plus Trump meeting with China on November 1st, or Trump meeting with China October 30th, I should say, for his deadline on October 1st, plus the moon phases, plus what the whale wallets are doing, plus what your technicals are at, plus what your indicators are saying, plus liquidations, plus ETF flows, plus sentiment data. You see what I mean? Who else is looking at all of this data? You got to be able to front run all of this and stay one step ahead. You don't want to be reactionary. You want to be proactive. Crypto is part of global liquidity. Crypto is based off global liquidity, guys, based off monetary policy. What is monetary policy telling you? Are they tightening monetary policy with quantitative tightening? Or are they easing it with quantitative easing? Are they injecting more money into the economy? Will they have more stimulus in the future? You got to be able to analyze this and determine what is going to happen based off of these events. And finally, watch the Fed, read data, trade reactions, not headlines. Like I said, you want to be proactive, not reactive. So, and here's the thing I want to say, guys. Remember when the whole situation happened with Trump and Iran, right? Whenever Trump was attacking Iran's nuclear facilities. Now, it actually became clear and it leaked that Trump was going to do it that day. I think 12 hours prior it leaked. And the market started selling off. And people didn't know why the market was selling off. Well, I knew because the data leaked that he was going to attack them. And so whenever he attacked them, the market pumped. And people were like, why is the market pumping? He attacked them. Isn't that negative? Well, here's the thing, guys. The market's very efficient. It priced it in beforehand. Literally, it was pricing in the attack. So after the attack happened, there was no other negative catalyst because that was the biggest. Therefore, the market's pumping because now the war is done. You see what I'm saying? You got to be able to play 4D chess here. You can't just react to news. You got to be able to look ahead and front run it. The market's efficient, so you got to be the same. And watch how the market reacts to the data as well. With that said, guys, let me look at the questions and see what we have here. Also, only 27 likes, 67 viewers. If you guys could like the stream, that would be awesome, guys. Let's see. All right, what's going on, guys? A lot of good people here. Let me go ahead and bring the questions up in the pop-out chat so you guys can see where I'm looking. Here we go. All right, let's see. Okay, near analysis this stream. So not going over any technicals this stream, but near, kind of iffy on that. Not really bullish or bearish on near. It does have opportunity, but it needs to start holding its major support levels. See, you said the 1 year Bitcoin liquidation heat map, big clusters there. So I'll just look at it on my other screen and see if I can see what the data is looking like real quick. Okay, so on the 24-hour liquidation heat map, so we have liquidations near 110.4K and 112.7K. Interesting. I'd love us to reach 112.7K. That would be awesome. And then looking at the 1 week heat map, we have, liquidity near 112.3K. So it looks like Bitcoin wants to tag 112.3K. Then we do have some light liquidity near 108.9. So potentially a pullback to there, but it does look good for liquidity to the upside. So very, very nice. Let's see. Brome says, hey CD, how you doing? My timeline has been opposite of yours lately. yeah, timeline has been all messed up. Riadul says, do you think Aster will go over $2? Most likely. With CZ pardon, I think he can crime it up again. Glico says, hey John Luke, how can I improve my analysis in a longer time frame? So honestly, Glico, the big thing you can do is just learn technical analysis, learn the basics. So I have a video on the Jim Hunter's channel. Is called Technical Analysis Basics. If you go to the live tab, it's actually the third video from the bottom. Watch that, and then you can apply that. I go over daily time frame analysis, and you can apply that to weekly as well. Riadul says, will KTA go above $1? Most likely, yes. Chudjack, 1 year Bitcoin liquidity heat map is kind of useless because we're not going back to 60 to 80K again, even in the worst bearish case. You know, it's possible we could still go that in the worst bearish case. We could still go back to 60 to 80K because the market historically has those 60 to 80% pullback. So I would not rule that out, but I would be a buyer near 70, 75K if we get there again. Hey, what's going on, Barry? Good to see you. Appreciate the compliment. Brendan says, what's up? Great content about macroeconomics. Love that. Hey, appreciate you, Brendan. That's the biggest thing is I want you guys to understand the analysis behind macroeconomics and how it has such a big effect on crypto, because literally it's about monetary policy and about how the economy operates. So if there's no money in the system, obviously no one's going to buy crypto. So you got to be able to correlate those two. Appreciate it. KTA thoughts, tentatively bullish. If you can buy it near 50 cents and 44 cents, those are good buy areas. Spot only. Don't leverage trade KTA. Only spot. What do you think about XRP? I'm still bullish on XRP. Tentatively bullish. I mean, I don't trade it as much, but tentatively bullish. Fact says, let's see. Okay. Sala sold. Hold on. Sala says, sold KTA at 58 cents. Looking to re-enter between 45 to 37. Hope I get it. There you go. Brendan says, question, you said the 50 basis point rate cut would be bullish. Wouldn't it be better to just cut 25 basis points slower and steadier instead of 50? 50 could indicate the economy is worse than expected. So, Brendan, yes, I see exactly where you're coming from. Now, here's the thing. People want rates to come down quickly. Trump wants rates to cut down quickly, and he basically wants people to have more discretionary income to spend in the economy. And so, while I do agree with you, it would be better to steadily cut 25 basis points. I think that 150 basis point rate cut to really get us reset wouldn't be horrible, because I think that would be a big injection of liquidity as far as people having discretionary income, loans being cheaper, mortgages being cheaper, etc. And so I think that short term it would be bullish for us. Long term, yeah, could mean the economy is worse than expected, and then we could see a big crash in 2026, which I still believe is going to happen. But short term, I think it would be good for the Fed. If it does that, plus in quantitative tightening, I mean, that means a huge injection of liquidity is coming, especially if the economy is worse than expected. So short term, it would be bullish. Let's see. Diane says, how can I connect with you personally? So if you go to my X account, you can just DM me on X. I'll show you guys real quick. And I might as well just put this up here for the time being. So yeah, if you guys want to follow me on X at the CryptoData, I can also post this in the chat so you guys can see. There you go. If you're not following me there at the CryptoData, that's how you can connect with me personally. So just DM me on there and I'll be able to get it. Don't fall for scammers either. Watch out. Make sure it's the CryptoData. Block any other scammers. Let's see. Chudjack, maybe we'll go into a big range in 2026 after the cycle ends. Expectedly, at one point it'll tag 100Ks maybe. Yeah, I do believe this, Chudjack, 100%. We're either going to top in January or in May. One of those two. Diane says, like your Insta, or how can we connect further? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so just DM me on X. I mean, you can DM me on Instagram as well, at the CryptoData, but X is going to be where I'll most likely respond quicker. Sala says, CD, what's your favorite time zone around the world for trading? Honestly, a good question. Honestly, I would say United States, Central Standard Time, so around 11, 12 p.m. I think that's the best time around that midday Central Standard Time, because Trump is, he's making announcements, people are active. That's usually the best time. AG says, platform for whale tracking and short explanation on how to do it. Thank you for sharing all this valuable knowledge. Ain't no problem, AG. So all you have to do, you can either pay for it with Nansen AI and track those whale wallets, or just go to, I think it's Hyperdash. Hyperdash is a platform. I'll go ahead and link that real quick. Let's see, Hyperdash. Okay, so for example, this is a whale wallet here. Let me link one in chat. Give me 1 second, guys. Let me just make sure this is the right one. Okay. So yeah, this is a whale wallet here. This hyperdash.info that I linked you guys. This whale is long on Ethereum from 38.97 and is long from Bitcoin 110.6K. His profit so far is over $3 million. So that tells you that that's a good position so far to be in, is long Bitcoin and Ethereum. So that's why I'm tracking some of these whale wallets. But yeah, just go to Hyperdash, look at the analytics, look at the stats of who's the most popular whales. You guys are getting some alpha in this stream. Let's see. Narrative follows price. Exactly, Brendan. Fact says, yep, go in there. Joel, has the market always been like that, where negative news is pumped because they're front-running Fed decisions? So no, Joel, it hasn't always been like that. Like, for example, when we had 8 months of rates just holding steady, then at that point it was good news is good news and bad news is bad news. But now, as we get closer to needing the Fed to cut rates, then bad news is good news and good news is bad news. Because we want there to be worse news that the Fed will have more inclination to cut rates. It's a weird kind of relationship right now, but yeah, it didn't used to be like that. Just because of how far we are and, expecting the Fed to cut rates at this point. Darian says, I was watching Ty, the Crypto King, and he said he thinks Bitcoin will go to about 95K. What do you think? I think 95K is a great buy level. I have my buy set between 95 and 99. Now, I don't know if we'll get there. I'll tell you the scenarios that'll get us there. If Trump and Xi don't come to an agreement and they slap the tariffs on 100% plus for both countries, okay? At that point, probably another black swan, probably going down to 99 to 95K. Or if the Fed announces no more rate cuts for the year, or they don't end quantitative tightening, if there's a lot of those combining together, yes, I could see us down that low, 100%. Gen Z says, I didn't understand the thing you said with Iran at last. Basically, what I was saying is there was an announcement that Trump was going to attack them 12 hours prior to it actually happening. So the sell-off happened 12 hours prior. So by the time the actual event happened, where Trump bombed their nuclear facilities, it was a buy the news event, because people were already pricing in him attacking it. And after he attacked it, there's no more negative catalyst for the future. Therefore, people bought that attack, if that makes sense, because people were already pricing it in from knowing it was going to happen 12 hours prior. So you got to look at the prediction and what people are expecting and how the market reacts. Maddie says, do you take funding rates into consideration? Yes, funding rates are very important as well. Thanks for reminding me. Funding, especially if you have negative funding, right? That means that, I believe, negative funding means that the longs, I want to say the longs are getting paid at that point, and positive funding means the shorts are getting paid. So I believe that's right. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, that's where you definitely want to look at funding as well. Thoughts on SUI? Kind of iffy on it. Not really that bullish on it right now. Which macro event moves the market the most? The FOMC meeting and interest rate cuts. That and tariff news. They're kind of both. But yeah, I would say equally. Thoughts on Arkham? I like the platform. Platform's good for tracking whales too. But at the end of the day, the coin, not sure how much promise there is with it. Ain't no problem, Brendan. Sala says, I think mid-2026 top makes sense, as Trump might hype up midterms, just like there was hype when he won and everyone thought the market was going to send. There you go, Sala. That's actually a good point about the midterms of 2026 in November. That's actually a good point. So yeah, definitely something to watch on that. Ain't no problem, AG. No problem, guys. Hey, Usama, good to have you here. Thank you for the compliment. Usama says, we'd love for you to pull up some charts for Bitcoin ETH sold and liquidations up to 1 year. Have an idea how to see the market. So right now, this is just strictly for the macro news currently. But like I said, for Bitcoin, as long as it can hold 108K bullish, 110K is the big level to watch. And Ethereum, as long as it can hold 3850. And Solana, as long as it can hold 185. All big levels. And actually, Solana needs to hold about 192 if we're being real here. But 185 is a good level for it to hold. Chudjak, like his live stream, guys. There are 80 of us and only 39 likes. Yeah, if you guys could like the live stream, that'd be so awesome, guys. Let's see, if GLI and ISM are still rising, wouldn't that mean the real bull hasn't even started yet? Technically, yes. That's a good point as well. So quantitative tightening hasn't even ended yet. Interest rates haven't really begun to cut that much yet. So yeah, guys, we could be in for a big pump in the market. Joel says, CD, you've been doing good. Sound a bit off. So I'm on a different microphone than usual. For the past couple weeks, I've been on my laptop. So I'll be back on my desktop in another couple weeks. But yeah, that's probably why I sound a little different. Solana for EF. So Solana right now, it needs to hold 192. And 185 is good support, as well as 175. So if you can buy it near there, that's good. Resistance, going to be a lot of resistance on Solana near 201. Let's see, could ETH go down below 3,400? I can't see it. Below 3850, the next major support is that trend line on the bull flag, which is going to be around 3630. Below that, I mean, then you're looking at 3,500. But I can't see it going down that low unless we have another black swan. Brome says, any other whale and market makers that you've been tracking? That's the main one right now. There's obviously some others, but I have to get them. I don't have them readily available right now. But yeah, just looking at some of the insiders, like I said, whenever Trump made that tariff announcement, and you had a big whale shorting 80 million worth. I think that's the whale I'm tracking right now. Adam says, are moving averages important? Yes, yes, yes. 50 EMA and 200 EMA are very important, both of those. Sal says, Sol ETF soon. Yes, Hong Kong is launching their Solana ETF October 27th. Another positive catalyst for Solana. So thanks for the reminder on that. So you guys, a lot of these events you need to front run, you need to be expecting, because they are what traders are looking at as well and what they react to. So if you know about the events before they happen, then when everyone's buying the news, you're actually selling the news and taking advantage of those profits and those pumps. So that's what I want to get across from people is, one, learning how to read macro news and macroeconomic policy, as well as how that affects the market, the inverse correlation between gold and Bitcoin, and even gold and the DXY, or Bitcoin and the DXY more so, and the relationship between interest rate cuts in the market, quantitative tightening, quantitative easing, sentiment, technical analysis, liquidation levels, etc. Like all of that comes into play, guys. Super Gringo says, big crash will wipe out cash value, making it redundant. CBDCs step in with Bitcoin being as close to anonymity you can get for whatever holds it. Is Bitcoin, they leave your enemy a small exit. There you go. Jinzi says, their website or something that tells us speculation, like before the news happens, not once they happen, credible ones. Ooh, good question, Jinzi. I'm actually not sure of one. I'm actually not sure. Like, obviously there's some measurements with the Fed CME watch tool for if they're going to cut rates or not and the expected percentage of that. But besides that, it's I don't know if there's any specific ones. Danny Jacobs says, hey man, have you heard of APD and BNB on BNB? Love if you could do analysis on it. Don't mind if you can. Let me know what if we think in your next stream. Yeah, I can't look at it right now, Danny, but I have no thoughts on APD. But I'll need to look at it definitely. I know the BNB ecosystem may be gaining traction again, so that's something to watch as well. Fox says, if new bull hasn't even reset and we never even saw a true capitulation phase, how could the bull cycle be over already? Exactly, right? Everyone's expecting it to end in October, but I think, honestly, we could still be in for a final push. So, Super Gringo says, thanks for the knowledge. Awesome, guys. Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate all of you guys watching, right? I hope you guys learned something during the stream. I tried to answer all the questions and also go over a lot of my analysis and what I look for in the market, because at the end of the day, the market's about being proactive, not reactive. The market's very efficient now. Game theory is always at play, basically meaning what the next player is going to do and predicting that and reacting accordingly. So if you can do that and also look at upcoming events and predict how the market's going to react to those upcoming events, you could make that much more money, right? While also managing your risk accordingly, setting stops, not trading high leverage, etc. So hopefully you guys learned a lot. Love you guys. Hope you have a great weekend. If you have any other questions, then of course you can message me in Gym Hunters or my own group, either one, or DM me on X at the CryptoData. If you're not following me on there, definitely give me a follow. Would really appreciate it. Also, if you guys haven't liked the video, please like it. Help spread it to the masses. If you guys want to join the Gym Hunters free group, in the description. The paid group is 1 Ethereum for a year in the description as well. And we also have the Photon and BloFin links as well for anyone who wants to use those. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. Appreciate all of you. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. Talk soon.